In this dysfunctional housing market, there will be winners and losers. Who will those be in 2024? Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, this is Melanie Atkinson, Realtor with Smith & Associates in beautiful Tampa, Florida. And today we are going to talk about my predictions for the 2024 housing market. Right off the bat, I will tell you that I am not predicting a dramatic housing market crash in 2024. There are plenty of people who are. If you want all doom and gloom, there are thousands of videos here that will give you that. To come up with my predictions, I use the data that I have at my disposal, and I use the knowledge that I gain by working with buyers and sellers every day here in the Tampa area. My predictions aren't just for YouTube viewers. I use them to help advise my actual clients. So I'm going to tell you guys exactly what I'm telling my buyers and sellers right now. Please remember that real estate is very local. My predictions are based on the data that I have in the Tampa area and on a broader scope, the state of Florida. Also keep in mind that Florida and Tampa are still popular markets with a lot of people relocating here. Check out a recent episode I did talking about just that. So my data may not be the same as your data. Okay, as the dust has settled on the housing market slowdown, it's getting easier to look ahead. I'm seeing shifts in the balance of the market, and I'm starting to see some cracks that have my attention. So who will be the winners and losers in 2024? The number one winner, sellers who bought their homes prior to COVID. This one doesn't come as a huge surprise. They have been winning this whole time. Since March of 2020, the median sales price for a single-family home in the entire state of Florida has increased by 50%. In the Tampa area specifically, median single-family home sales prices have increased by 60%. That is a ton of equity that was gained in a short period of time. Even if we see prices fall in 2024, it would be nearly impossible to see them fall enough to negate all of the equity that has been gained. So if you bought your house prior to 2020 and you need to sell in 2024, you should be able to do so and pocket some of that equity. The number one losers? Sellers who bought fairly recently, especially those in high construction areas. This is something I warn my buyers about all the time. If you're buying in an area that has a lot of vacant land and new construction, you have to be prepared to compete with builders if you have to sell somewhat quickly after closing. Life can change unexpectedly, and you may not be able to turn around and sell a house for more than you bought it for. Builders are so difficult to compete against because they can attract buyers by offering more incentives, they can lower prices, they can offer loan buydowns, they have warranties. A single seller doesn't have that same flexibility, especially if they only put down a small amount of down payment when they bought their home. In fact, this is where I've already seen some short sales pop up, and that caught my attention very quickly. A short sale is when the lender agrees to allow you to sell the home for less than what is owed on the home. We saw so many short sales during the Great Recession. It was pretty much all we did here in the state of Florida. So say for instance, you were an FHA buyer. You put down 3.5%, you bought your house in December of last year, and now you have to move. There's a good chance your house has not increased enough for you to find a buyer that's willing to pay what you paid, plus cover the closing costs of selling your home. You will either have to come up with the difference in cash at closing, or you may have to look into short selling your house. Neither of which are great options. I absolutely expect this to become more of an issue in 2024. If you are in this situation, reach out to us and we can help advise you. Number two winner in 2024, buyers purchasing new construction homes. I realize that sounds contradictory to everything I just said, but if you are a buyer in 2024 and you don't intend to move quickly and you understand the risks of buying in areas with builder competition, this is where some of the best deals are being found. Over the course of this year, builders have piled on the incentives because they are carrying more supply, which means more overhead, and they don't like that. They also don't like lowering prices. so offering large amounts towards closing costs is their preference. As a buyer, you can use this contribution towards interest rate buydowns, design center options, general closing costs, or a combination of all of those things. All builders have different incentives and they change all the time, but I've regularly seen incentives between $20,000 and $30,000 depending on the sales price. That is a wonderful change from just 18 months ago when builders were offering very little, if any, incentives. The number 2 loser, sellers of ugly houses. Back in the frenzy, there was a buyer for every house, probably more than one, and it didn't really matter whether that house was in disrepair or not. Now, buyers have more choices, and sellers are going to have to straighten up, literally and figuratively. Now, when I say ugly houses, I don't just mean actual ugly houses. I also mean houses with obvious buyer objections. For instance, a less than desirable lot, a disjointed floor plan, lots of deferred maintenance, and that's just to name a few. These are the houses that are going to go down the most in value simply because the buyers will have other options and they won't want to deal with them. Do you remember the equity I talked about in the first set of winners? If you have owned your house for a while, you will probably still have plenty of equity if you need to sell. But you are going to pay for that home maintenance that you have ignored because buyers are going to devalue your house accordingly. Buyers have so much more power as inventory goes up, and in a lot of cases, they have the ability to negotiate price and ask for repairs. If you're going to sell in 2024, you have to prep and price your house strategically. I know it seems obvious for a realtor to recommend using a realtor when selling, but I assure you that a professional who knows how to prep and price your house will be a huge asset to you as a seller in 2024. The number 3 winner, renters. Before you come after me in the comments, I fully realize that rent affordability is still a huge problem, especially in Florida. The reason that renters will be winners in 2024 is that rent prices have finally stabilized. I'm not going to say that they've gone down a lot, but they are not rising at the frantic pace that they were rising before. Plus, there isn't as much demand and there is more supply. Apartment complexes and large rental companies are competing for the renters that are out there, which means more incentives and hopefully lower rent prices as 2024 goes on. The other thing to consider is that even with historically high rent prices, it is currently more affordable to rent than it is to buy. And that wasn't the case just 2 years ago when interest rates were at historical lows. However, because interest rates have gone up so much and prices haven't gone down, that has flipped. As someone who believes strongly in the benefits of home ownership, it does pain me to recommend to clients to rent, but in some cases, it is the best path for them. The number 3 loser in 2024, investors, some more than others. As I just said, rent prices have stabilized. They may even start going down in some areas. What hasn't gone down are the carrying costs of owning a home, especially in Florida and especially investment properties. A lot of investors pay cash for their homes in their portfolio so they can make a profit even if rent prices do go down. However, their profit margins will be shrinking because property taxes and homeowners insurance is only getting more expensive. Let's talk about property taxes first. In Florida, if you have an investment property, now I'm not talking about primary homes right now, there's a big difference. The taxable value of that property can rise up to 10% per year. Every year, the county property appraiser determines how much the values have increased, and they will adjust taxable values accordingly. So, if the property appraiser has determined that there was a 9% increase in your area, then the taxable value of that investment property will go up by 9%. Over the past couple of years, county property appraisers have been able to do maximum 10% increases because we have seen huge price increases. So if you bought a property in 2021 and your taxable value was $400,000 and it increased 10% each year, your taxable value this year in 2023 was $484,000. Add the increases in millage rates that a lot of cities and counties have had, and you're dealing with a large tax increase from when you bought that property. Regarding insurance, investors and regular homeowners are losers in Florida and will continue to be in 2024. Florida is the most expensive state for homeowners insurance, and it keeps increasing. In 2022, insurance premiums went up about 33%, and the projections for 2023 are around 40%. All of that cuts into an investor's bottom line. The worst scenario for investors in 2024 is if they have borrowed money to purchase their properties and the cost of those loans is determined by adjusting interest rates. If you have to pay 8 to 10% interest rate on your mortgage, plus the increase in carrying costs, it is going to be hard to get that math to work from an investment perspective unless you bought the house at a very low price and increased the rent value with significant improvements. And finally, I am going to put first-time homebuyers as both winners and losers in 2024. It all depends on your perspective and your long-term goals. First-time homebuyers have been the very biggest of losers in 2023. Interest rates and stubborn prices made a lot of excited first-time homebuyers become stalled buyers that lost interest in buying altogether. And I totally understand that feeling. The reason I think first-time homebuyers will continue to be losers in 2024 is that I don't think there is going to be dramatic price or interest rate decreases. It's still not going to be easy. However, first-time homebuyers have more opportunity and more power than they've had since 2020 because there's more supply and less demand. If you can afford to buy a home and you plan on staying in that home for at least a few years, then look for opportunities to jump into the market. Take advantage of all the builder incentives to buy down your rate. Look at resale homes that have been on the market for a long time and negotiate price and seller contributions. Ask for repairs. All of these things have been hard to come by in recent years, but should be doable in 2024. You will have to be flexible. And please get the help of a knowledgeable and experienced real estate professional to guide you. Enjoying the personal and financial benefits of homeownership will make you feel like a winner in 2024. That's very cheesy. Did I write that? Oh gosh. We are all very happy to say goodbye to the housing market of 2023. I look forward to helping buyers and sellers in the Tampa Bay area in 2024. If you are in that market, head to our website, register, and we'll get back to you. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please hit those thumbs up and subscribe buttons. If you're looking for something else to watch on this channel, check out a recent episode I did on reasons why not to move to Florida. Thank you all, and I'll see you next time.